Hey there, Mike Robbins here, coming to you live. What's today? Wednesday, around 10:15 Pacific time. I want to talk a bit about toxic positivity. Um, Now, this is a term that's been thrown around the last few years. I've been hearing it more in the last number of months. And when I first heard it, I was a little confused by it. But then the more I sort of dug into it, it made sense. I actually just did a quick Google search because I wanted to give you a quick definition of it up front. Toxic positivity. I don't know where this definition comes from. It just showed up when I Googled it. The overgeneralization of a happy, optimistic state that results in the denial, minimization, and invalidation of the authentic human emotional experience. So, look, the reason why I want to talk about this right now is I've been thinking about this concept a lot during COVID, for a bunch of reasons, and with everything that's gone on in our country and our world over the last 15, 16 months. And look, if you're familiar with me and my work at any level, you know that I'm an optimist. The very first book that I wrote that came out in 2007 is called Focus on the Good Stuff. And while I don't use the word positive or positivity specifically all that much, a lot of what my work is about, it's about authenticity and appreciation and compassion and kindness and keeping things in perspective and trying to stay as positive as possible, even and especially when things are challenging or they're stressful or whatever. So yeah, I mean, as you're watching this, if you're watching live on, LinkedIn or on Facebook or on YouTube, feel free to just chime in with comments or questions, or just let me know how you're doing, or even if you're watching the video of this after. But I'd love to hear from you about where you see toxic positivity show up. And some of that is I was thinking about this over the weekend. This past weekend was Father's Day. And if you follow me here on any of these social platforms, you may have seen the post that I wrote about Father's Day. I'm a dad and we have two girls. Samantha's 15, Rosie's 12. I love being a dad. But I've always had kind of a weird relationship with Father's Day, even before I became a father myself. And some of it just stems from the fact that, my parents split up when I was 3. My dad and I had a challenging relationship. I loved my dad a lot. And by the time he died when I was 27, so almost 20 years ago, my dad suffered from bipolar disorder and was in and out of our lives when I was a kid. Even in addition to just being divorced, we saw him every other weekend for a few years and then not for a while. And so there's a lot of pain around my relationship with my father. We did reconcile and make a lot of peace in our relationship by the end, what ultimately was the end of his life. I didn't know it at the time that he died somewhat suddenly, even though both mentally and physically he had some challenges. He was 68 when he died. But so there's that. So when I think about my dad, and he's gone now and been gone for 20 years. So Father's Day is always this, oh, my dad's gone, so I can't say Happy Father's Day to him. And even when he was alive, there was some pain and challenge in our relationship. But so what my post was about and what I was thinking about on Sunday was, as I'm scrolling through Facebook and Instagram and seeing people's posts about their fathers or their husbands, the fathers of their children, I was thinking, gosh, what about those of us who've lost our dads? What about any of us who, as fathers, may feel bad about some of the aspects of our own fatherhood, or maybe we have a strained relationship with an adult child or even a teenage child, or maybe, our father's still alive, but it's a difficult relationship, or we had a falling out, or maybe we're not fathers and we're never going to be. And so I was talking to a friend of mine who doesn't have kids, and he's like, Father's Day is always kind of a weird day for me. Or maybe, we're a stepfather, or now like an ex-stepfather, and, the kids were 3 and 7 when we, met our partner, and then we were together for 20 years and then we split up. So now the kids are grown and adults, and maybe they don't reach out on Father's Day because we're not really there. I mean, there's a million different scenarios in which Father's Day, just like Mother's Day, just like Valentine's Day, just like even the holidays, Christmas, Hanukkah, New Year's, can be bittersweet, can be, they're seen as these universally positive things. But I would think it's more the rule and not the exception that people probably have mixed feelings on Father's Day. But as I was thinking about that, and again, part of what I put in my post, if you really love your dad, whether he's still here or not, and you have these really strong, warm feelings about your father, or you feel great about yourself as a father, or you're married to someone who's the father of your children who you just adore, and it's purely a thank you, I love you, I appreciate you. Awesome. Like, do that. I'm not saying don't do that. Be super proud of that. But be grateful and realize that's not everyone's experience. Right? Over COVID, I mean, a lot of people have been struggling with so many things physically, losses, people who've lost people in their lives, the losses of jobs, of opportunities, of connections, of, people struggling financially at work and balancing things and working from home and kids doing school from home and people struggling, especially our kids, with isolation and disconnection and mental, emotional challenges and mental health issues and all kinds of stuff. So when people say, like, this has been the great reset, or I love being at home, again, it's not that we don't want to say those things and acknowledge those things if they're true and they're real, but we also have to read the room and be aware of what's going on. And so toxic positivity is like this, hey, it's all good. Hey, pick yourself up. Hey, look on the bright side. Hey, find the silver lining. All of which are things I believe in, I teach, I write about. This is the essence of my life and my work. And at the same time, we have to do it authentically. We have to do it in a way that doesn't invalidate other people's experiences or even our own. Is Father's Day a good thing? Well, yeah. And is it a painful thing? Well, yeah. Has have there been benefits to COVID and things we've learned from COVID in ways that maybe we've enjoyed some aspects of it if we're fortunate enough to still be here? And yeah, there's things I'm going to miss about it. There's things I've learned from it. There's things I've appreciated about it. And it's also really sucked and been hard and been painful for me personally, for my business, for almost everyone I know, for a lot of people in the world and people who've dealt with loss and death and tragedy and businesses shutting down, all kinds of stuff. So it's like life just amplified. And, I've been talking about for years, emotions. It's a big part of my work. How do we, emotional intelligence, emotional awareness, emotional expression, emotional health. But one of the things I was taught years ago that I've deepened more in my own work and my own journey, I have to keep reminding myself, there's this notion of positive emotions and negative emotions. Now, look, clearly love and joy and happiness and gratitude and peacefulness, and those are more pleasurable. Those have certain energies and definitely seem much more positive than anger and sadness and fear and jealousy and rage and shame and guilt. But they're all emotions. And I actually believe that emotions are positive when we feel them authentically and appropriately express them. They're negative when we deny them, avoid them, don't feel them. And again, we think of, and we tend to deny more the harder ones, the more quote unquote negative ones. We deny our anger, we deny our fear, we would deny our sadness, our hurt, our jealousy, our rage, because like they're hard to feel and they're intense and they're not as socially acceptable. And people don't like hearing about our sadness or our hurt or our anger or our rage or our jealousy, or we get judged for it. It doesn't always feel safe. We were even taught as kids, like, don't cry, don't do that, don't. But look, even the more positive emotions, think of how much we suppress our love, our excitement, our joy. And sometimes even what I'm talking about is like, oh, people are suffering. I don't want to let people know how happy I am. And that makes sense, but you can still feel the happiness, feel the joy without necessarily broadcasting it. That's why the expression is about being appropriate. I can feel my rage and feel my anger, but that doesn't mean I have to yell and scream and let it all out all the time with people. Like, but again, not suppress it, actually feel it. But think of times like things are going great and we're not actually experiencing the gratitude or the appreciation because it's not good enough or it should be better or we take it for granted. And then something bad happens and then we feel a sense of regret that we didn't enjoy and appreciate and really allow ourselves to feel the gratitude given how great things were or whatever. So I'm sharing all of this because, again, I am committed to being a positive force for good in the world, in my life, in my family, and with my team, with my clients, with you watching this, with everybody. That's my commitment. So I do have a commitment at some level to positivity, even though, like I said earlier, I don't use that term all that often. But toxic positivity is like putting frosting on mud and calling it a cake. It's not real. It can be incredibly damaging to us and to people around us. So we want to be authentically positive by telling the truth and really feeling how we feel and acknowledging our real experience. Have you ever been really upset about something and cried because you were sad or you were angry, you were hurt or you were disappointed or even, in a place of grief? And do you ever notice that after a really good cry, even if you're in an incredibly intense, stressful, challenging moment in life, or almost always we feel better after we cry? Have you ever noticed that? Yeah, it does something to us physiologically, emotionally, energetically, but it's because we feel the emotion and then we express it and we move through it. And the thing that we're sad about, if someone's died or we lost something, or we're going through some heartache or some pain or some concern, or we're worried about someone in our life who may not be well, that doesn't magically go away just because we cried. In fact, it's still there. But we are more capable, more able of really dealing with it authentically when we allow ourselves to feel the emotion and let it move through us. So that sadness, while we consider that a negative emotion, by feeling it and then appropriately expressing it, I get some of my power back. Now I can be more authentically positive instead of, I'm not sad, I'm fine, it's all good. Everything happens for a reason. There's a silver lining. People have it worse. And look, during COVID, we can get into this comparative suffering thing that makes sense, but is dangerous. Just because if you haven't lost someone in your life or lost your job or gotten COVID or whatever, fill in the blank, something that we would all agree, ooh, that's hard, that's bad. Just because you haven't experienced those things doesn't mean you don't have a right to feel what you feel. And just because even if you have experienced one or many of those things that are tragic and super painful, that doesn't mean you somehow have a monopoly on all the pain and suffering in the world. We all experience different pain and different intensity and different challenge. Most of us have been and maybe still are traumatized by what's happened over the last 15, 16 months. That doesn't mean we can't authentically be positive, but we can't do it by avoiding the trauma, the pain, the challenge. We have to be real about that first. We don't want to do what we call a spiritual bypass. Oh, it's all good. Everything happens for a reason. Yeah, I do believe at some deep level that things happen for reasons, but some things that happen are really painful and they're really sad and they're really scary and they're really anger inducing or whatever. And it's important for us to acknowledge those things authentically. So if we choose positivity, we're doing it from a real place. Not because we're afraid to feel the feeling or not because we think we're supposed to, or I'm the positive one, I'm the leader, I'm the parent, I have to be positive. No, you don't. If you're positive all the time, it's not only toxic, it's fake. Nobody's positive all the time. We're not supposed to be. We have ebbs and flows and ups and downs. You can choose to be in a place of joy, in a place of gratitude, in a place of choice, in a place of empowerment more often than not, but not by avoiding your feelings and not by pretending that everything's all good. And if things are going well for you right now, when a lot of people around you are having difficulty, you don't have to be embarrassed by that. You don't have to sabotage that. You don't have to apologize for it. Just be grateful for it, feel it, be mindful of how you express it, right? If my wife and I are blissfully happy in our marriage, bragging about that to my friend who's going through a divorce is insensitive. But I don't have to deny and avoid and pretend like Michelle and I aren't doing well. I just don't need to necessarily broadcast it to this friend of mine in that moment. I can be there for him and support him and love him and in my heart be super grateful, which I often am. Someone goes through a tragedy. One of the feelings we don't let ourselves feel, someone else has a serious loss in their life, or their kid is going through something really hard, or they lost their job or something. And what we don't often acknowledge is, wow, we maybe feel a sense of guilt, but what's underneath the guilt is gratitude. Wow, I really feel for that person. I'm grateful I'm not going through that. Now, we don't say that to them because that might be insensitive or dismissive. But we're human. Of course we feel that way. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry for your loss. And what I also feel in my heart is I'm so grateful I'm not going through that loss right now. And maybe someday I will. So it's not I'm better than you, I'm superior. It's just like, but again, allowing ourselves to feel what we really feel authentically then allows us to more authentically choose to be positive. Toxic positivity is feeling like we have to be positive, or we have to put a positive spin on everything, or we have to be, it's okay, it's all good, don't worry, don't cry, don't be upset, That's dangerous. And it's toxic. So be mindful of that. Be compassionate with yourself if you do. Usually it comes from a good place. There's good intention behind toxic positivity, but lower the waterline on your iceberg a little bit. Allow yourself to be real about what you're actually feeling, and then choose the positivity from a deeper, more genuine place. That's how we create more positive situations, environments, relationships, teams, not by forcing it to be. If everyone has to be positive in a good mood all the time, it's dangerous and uncomfortable and not healthy. So look, it's hard to navigate what we're all going through still these days, and your desire to be positive is awesome. Just make sure it's real, it's genuine, it's healthy, and not toxic. So thanks for watching. Again, if you're watching the video of this after and you want to drop a comment, feel free to do that. I always usually look back at these things and see what people have to say or questions that they ask. I may be taking a break from doing lives for a while, just like I'm going to take a break from doing my podcast and email newsletter for July and probably August, but I will still be on social a bit. Feel free to reach out to me or connect with me if you have questions, topics you want me to cover, or anything else. Yeah, Kathleen, Anita Morjani, who wrote Dying to Be Me, is such a great book, such a great perspective, such a great book. So I highly recommend that. And Justine, thanks for joining. Kathleen, you as well. I'll look forward to seeing you again when I get on here live again, and hopefully I'll hear from you. Be well, be kind to yourself and everyone around you. Most people, all of us, we're doing the best we can, and we're all in this thing together. Take care.